much for joining us for today, as Liza perfectly teed us up for the last installment of our Anti-Poverty Practice Series. And we're going to be talking about 3 cases of financial empowerment for families. This is one of the learning community groups, one of many that we offer through the learning community. And we just had a cohort finish up back in August. And we've been doing publications and corresponding webinars through this series in an attempt to share all those great lessons learned, those resources shared, even some of those challenges that they face out to you all in the network so that we can learn and build capacity together. So let's dive right in. And as we like to do at all of our webinar events, we do so by reciting the promise of community action because it grounds us in our work. Despite our various positions and locations across the country, this is the one thing that keeps us united in the work that we do every day. And it states that community action changes people's lives, embodies the spirit of hope, improves communities, and makes America a better place to live. We care about the entire community, and we are dedicated to helping people help themselves and each other. A little bit about our project called the Learning Community, but its purpose is to analyze community action outcomes and identify effective, promising, and innovative practice models that alleviate the causes and conditions of poverty. Or, shortly stated, is to help you all build your capacity to fight poverty more effectively. So, here is a list of the learning community groups that were offered as a part of our last cohort. You can see there's a distinction between open and closed groups. Basically, the open groups met through a series of national webinar series events, similar to what brings you all to joining us today, but they met over the course of that 18 months, and we had 3 of those groups, which you can see here. Then we had our closed or intensive groups. Now, those consisted of community action agencies that actually applied to take part in a cohort, and they received customized training and technical assistance related to the topic areas that you see here on this screen. And all of the groups went through what we like to call our patented tried and true learning community process. It is a 4-phase process that each of the participants in those groups went through, and it starts in formation, where they really just get to know each other, cover the basics of whatever their topic area is that they're meeting about. Then they go into knowledge building. That is when they get into that literature review. They read up on all of the current discussions on their topic area and do that research to really finalize what they want to get out of their participation in the cohort. Then they go into piloting. So you got the research, you know everybody else in the group, go out and do your work. And then finally, practice transformation. That is where all of those ideas, those lessons learned get crystallized, and we turn them back out to you guys out in the network. And that is part of what we're doing here today. It is a summary of some of those findings from that final phase. And it's really about celebrating the progress of this group. We are so excited that the learning community has been around for 4 years throughout the CSVG network. And what we like to think of ourselves of in the LCRC is an incubator where we really help you guys learn about transformation. So on to our specific topic for today. As I mentioned, there are a plethora of learning community groups, and you saw them on your screen. But what we are here to talk about today is financial empowerment for families. So I'm certain that most of you are familiar with the basics of the service delivery area and may even be familiar with, a number of related terms like financial capability, financial coaching, or financial wellness. Hopefully those sound familiar to you all. But what makes financial empowerment different from any of those terms? Really, financial empowerment is about bringing all of those different things together through an intentional and integrated approach across your entire organization. So that usually manifests itself in 2 ways. One, it's finding as many touch points as possible through your various interactions with your clients to connect them with reputable financial services, products, and coaching that's available either through your organization or others in your community. But it's also about breaking down that silo. For so much of the history of offering financial capability services, it's really kind of like that clinical discussion. It's really about like telling clients what they should do, making kind of heavy-handed suggestions on what financial choices would be better for them. versus financial empowerment is just that. It's about empowering clients to make the decisions that are right for them, connecting them with the resources, research, and tools to help them make the decisions that they see fit with their financial wealth. So we're going to keep going on to our next slide. So, sorry about that. From this perspective, you can clearly understand why it's important for community action agencies to ensure that they offer financial empowerment services, a financial empowerment approach in a way that is relevant and adaptable to the needs of individuals and families in their community. Through our experience in the learning community, we have been able to kind of sum that up and provide you all with an example of kind of how you can move through that process, and that's depicted here on the screen. What we've learned, not just from this LCG, but across our learning community groups, is that agencies tend to do better when they enter into this kind of work as a group. That way they have that support system there with them. They can share lessons learned, challenges, resources in real time, and they can kind of work and build off of each other and really achieve some really great things. So we have that broken down in a 5-step process here, and you can see it kind of maps the process that I talked about for the learning community process. So it starts with building those peer-to-peer relationships, helping people to understand they're not in this work alone and that there are other agencies that might be facing the same things that they're dealing with, might have the same questions that they can turn to each other. Then it goes into strategic planning. Again, trying to find all of those touch points where you can reach your clients in the most impactful way. Then it goes to resource and training assessment, of course with financial capability. You guys know, it seems like a new tool or a new resource or a new coaching method comes out like every week. So it's really finding ways to stay on top of it and getting people in your organization trained, again, based on the needs that are reflected in your community. And then lessons learned from the field. So continuing to talk to others in your group or maybe even outside of your learning community group, but agencies or organizations that you know are passionate and have experience in this work and seeing what their lessons learned are. And finally, we have seen that that tends to lead to improved financial empowerment strategies. So now that we have talked a bit about what the process is, what financial empowerment is, let's talk about why it's so important for community action agencies to ensure that they have a financial empowerment approach. Well, first and foremost, it's important because financial capability, financial empowerment is something that's relevant to everyone, not just people who are in poverty, but even us. I'm sure you guys will agree. I would always be excited to get, tips and tools on how to manage my budget, cash flow, things like that. Again, these things are coming at you all the time, and these relate to major decisions in your life that can have a really big impact. And as you see here on the screen, and as I was just saying, it's a complex set of factors, both internal, external, that play a critical role in the daily lives of Americans. But, as I'm sure all of you know, low-income Americans in particular face a number of key obstacles and challenges that really inhibit their ability to get connected to reputable financial products, services, and strategies. Some research that we did, we actually found that 77% of the American adult population lives in a state that is ranked as a C or below on a comprehensive 59-point scale that was developed by the Center for Financial Literacy at Champlain College. That was from last year. So think about that. 77%. So 3/4 of the entire adult population lives in a state where they do not easily have access to reputable financial products and services. Second, continued stigmas around receiving financial coaching or, needing to talk to someone about it has created an increased reliance on alternative financial habits. Over 80% of adults actually report that they feel that they could actually benefit from some type of professional guidance related to many of their day-to-day financial decisions, but only 24% of those said that they would actually seek help from a professional if they needed it. Additionally, 39% of U.S. adults reported rolling credits month to month, with 16% of those saying that they are rolling over $2,500 or more in credit card debt a month. Another aspect as to why financial empowerment is so important is that research is also showing us that integrated service delivery programs have both a higher rate of client success and are also more sustainable for agencies that are working with limited resources. So clients tend to achieve better outcomes when services are offered as part of an intentional integrated approach rather than when clients receive services kind of as a one-off. And there's also a business case for financial empowerment. A study that was done not just in the United States, but looking at nonprofits, NGOs across the world that offer financial capability services, they noted a strong positive correlation between integrated service delivery and decreased program costs. So not only is it good for your clients, but it's also smart for your business. There's a business case for looking at ways to implement a financial empowerment strategy at your organization. So now that we've looked at all of the research, we're going to get into today's case study. Give me just a second, I apologize. Having a bit freezing over here. Stand by. This is all part of the presentation. Okay, so sorry about that. Thanks for sticking with us, but we're going to jump right into our case study. And before we do so, we would like to thank our wonderful participants in our Financial Empowerment for Families LCG, and particularly the 3 organization teams that participated in this cohort with us. So we have Baltimore City Community Action Partnership, Capstone Community Action, and last but certainly not least, we have Community Action Partnership of Orange County. So let's take a deeper dive into these organizations' experience through our Financial Empowerment for Families LCG, and then we'll talk about some of their major lessons learned. So first we have Baltimore City CAP. They are located in Baltimore. They have a service population of over 600,000, and they are actually a public community action organization. Participation in this LCG was spearheaded by a 3-person team at this organization, the executive director, deputy director, and then the program director at one of their project centers located throughout Baltimore City. And really their efforts for participating in this cohort were threefold, as you can see here on the screen. First and foremost, they wanted to create a new financial empowerment strategy that would improve community knowledge of and access to financial capability services. They also wanted to be able to leverage their position in the community and be able to establish partnerships with other organizations in the field, in their area, that are doing great work in this space. And finally, they wanted to increase agency resources to be able to offer financial coaching to their clients in need. So they kind of had a pretty strong foundation in financial empowerment going into this. They had a couple of their staff members that were certified credit counselors. A vast portion of their staff actually had been trained in Your Money, Your Goals, which, if you haven't heard of it, is a financial empowerment toolkit that really walks through some of those bigger aspects of financial capability and breaks it down and makes it really conversational. So through their participation in this cohort, they worked very closely with the subject matter experts for this group, Prosperity Now, and through working with them and also peer-to-peer feedback that they got from other participants in the group, they were able to achieve some pretty big things, and I'm going to skip ahead to that, and then we're going to come back to some of the barriers that they experienced as a part of that. But as a result of their 20-month participation in the cohort, they had some pretty significant outcomes. They were able to develop a financial capability scale and referral plan, both of which were actually based on the ROMA crisis to thrive skills. They established a new position, Financial Capability Program Manager, and they built that within their Human Services Manager position. They also created a Financial Empowerment Summer Program that was targeted towards young adults, and they were actually able to reach a pretty significant amount of participants through that work. And finally, they actually could show a documented decrease in Baltimore's underbanked and unbanked residents through opportunities made possible through their VITA program. So we're going to step back for just a moment, and we're going to talk about some of the barriers that they encountered in that work. Of course, staff loss, staff turnover is always a challenge, particularly when you're working on a timetable. They also had some issues determining effective client retention and case management strategies. They particularly saw this as a challenge with that young adult summer financial empowerment program that they were working with. But in spite of those challenges, they still were able to achieve some significant outcomes, as we just discussed. But some key steps for them over the course of their 20-month participation in this cohort was investments in staff knowledge. So right at the very outset, they got into some deep conversations with Prosperity Now and really leveraged that connection, and they were able to learn about a number of training opportunities and resources that were made available through their subject matter expert. And as a result, they were able to receive some additional trainings, and they got more staff trained in the Your Money, Your Goals curriculum. Another important step for them was investing in staff capacity and programmatic offerings. And I touched on some of those points earlier, the establishment of that Financial Capability Program Manager position, the establishment of that Financial Empowerment Summer Program. But in addition to that, they also extended their tax prep services that they were offering. They opened that up at an additional center, and they did that for 1 day a week. And they also they were able to leverage their position and improve partnerships with other organizations and stakeholders in the city. And finally, it helped them to think more about the process from the client's perspective. Again, and that resulted in the development of those capability scales that are based on those Roma Crisis to Thrive scales. And also they increased the number of Your Money, Your Goals trainings that they offered with their clients. Now we're going to move on to our next case study. Our next case study that we're going to look at today, and that comes to us from the folks at Capstone Community Action over in Bear, Vermont. They have a much smaller service population, as you can see, of about 20,000 people, and they are a private community action agency. Back in late 2015, CED Program Director Mary Niebling, Saving and Credit Program Coordinator Liz Scharf, and Program Assistant Maureen Dougherty coordinated this organization's participation in the Financial Empowerment for Families, LCG. And their goal was actually a little bit more specific, but they wanted to learn more about how to develop a strategy to integrate financial capability services into one of their landmark programs, Community Kitchen Academy. So a little bit more about this program. Community Action Academy is a 12-week job training program for low-income, at-risk individuals who are interested in working in the culinary field. And they felt that pairing an intentional financial empowerment strategy with this work was of critical importance because the clientele in this work actually represented a particularly vulnerable segment of their population. And to give a little bit more detail, in order to even qualify to participate in this program, participants must be unemployed or unemployable and receiving an income at or below 100% of the federal poverty level. So, with the goal to create relevant and accessible financial capability opportunities to supplement the great work of this project, the Capstone team embarked on their journey through this. They also had a pretty strong foundation of financial capability before they joined us in the cohort. They also had 2 financial coaches on staff, and they actually had a 20-year strong IBA and financial capability program that they had been offering in their community. In addition to that, they also had a 10-year history of offering extensive credit counseling with their clients. So in order to figure out how to best integrate some of the other services that they were already offering in with this program, they came up with three touch points for participants in the Community Kitchen Academy to take advantage of some of these financial empowerment trainings. So they offered them financial capability workshops focused on budgeting, managing credit and debt, the basics of financial capability. Those were available to all participants in that program. They actually integrated it into the curriculum for that program. They also had basic credit repair counseling where interested students could come talk to the coaches and trainers in that course, and they would help them to pull their credit report and walk them through the basics and maybe show them one or two things that they could help them with to get it off of their credit. And they finally also offered the opportunity for one-on-one financial coaching for any interested student. So, pretty ambitious work, but they actually had a barrier, an interesting one in that the exact reason that this clientele really shined out as a client base that could really benefit from receiving these types of services actually made them really difficult to work with. The target candidates for this program are people with little to no credit, people that have difficulties with creating an accessible and actionable work plan, and their lack of employment history, or them being unemployable due to their experience, for example, with the criminal justice system, really made it hard to kind of get them connected with some of those services and to achieve some of those outcomes that went beyond kind of those basics of attending those, basic financial capability classes and a basic credit pull. So, despite that, they were able to achieve some pretty significant outcomes, I would say, for this program, but they have now learned how to successfully integrate financial capability services into this program, and I think they've completed 3 cohorts of the Community Kitchen Academy with the successful integration of these financial capability services. So we look forward to hearing more from them about the results of those participants in the group. Even though they weren't able to achieve everything they wanted, they have gotten outstanding feedback from all of the participants who were able to take part in the financial empowerment services that they offered. But most importantly, it offered them a better insight on how to reach this more vulnerable population. Again, that they had already been touching through a program that they were offering, but thinking about how they could take that financial empowerment work and put it on top of some other services that they were already administering to this community. So some keys to success for Capstone Community Action, you can see them here on the screen, but first was connecting the dots. Understanding that the client base that they were serving through CKA also provided a really great opportunity to kind of experiment with a financial empowerment approach. And also building on their extensive history in this topic area. So not trying to do a brand new thing, but actually trying to map the services that they already had a really strong history with and fold it into the offerings that they were providing through CKA. Next was connecting the vision to the services. So looking at that 12-week curriculum, identifying the key touch points and opportunities for including financial capability in the work and curriculum of what they were doing, and also obtaining support and buy-in from the partners in that effort. It's actually something that they partner with a few different organizations in the region with, so making sure that they were on board and supportive of this work, they found was really helpful for them in kind of revamping this curriculum and trying out this new approach. And finally, analyzing the results. Collecting that participant feedback and comparing it with their participation outcomes, and then again, making that realization that exactly the fact that this was an in-need population and some of the different characteristics that made them so vulnerable also makes it kind of difficult or challenging in some ways to offer them financial empowerment and financial capability work. So they're continuing to work on that project. As I mentioned, they're 3 cohorts strong, and we are really excited to hear more about the great work that they're doing through this project. So last but certainly not least, we're going to go all the way over to sunny California, and we're going to talk a little bit about Community Action Partnership of Orange County. They are located in Garden Grove, California. They have a service population of 3.1 million, and they are a private CAA. So this is the biggest service population of the different case studies that we have looked at so far. Participation in this LCG was led by Community Partnership and Services Director Dolores Barrett and Healthy Marriage and Families Program Manager Maribel Sarabia. They had hopes of accomplishing 2 primary goals through their participation in the Financial Empowerment for Families LCG. So first, they wanted to receive some additional guidance and technical support on how to administer their new Healthy Marriages and Families project. They actually were awarded that grant earlier in that year, and they were awarded a 5-year grant through DHHS. And in addition to providing families with communication and conflict resolution counseling, this initiative also seeks to present clients with the opportunity to receive financial empowerment coaching. So they wanted to learn more about how to properly integrate financial empowerment strategies into this new grant that they had received. And also their second goal was just to learn more about how to fully integrate a financial empowerment approach across all of their service offerings. So the CAP OC team spent the first 5 months of their time in our cohort laying a strong foundation for increased staff and agency capacity and utilizing the in-depth review of building financial capability, which is a toolkit that's provided by Prosperity Now, which really walks agencies kind of through that step-by-step process of how to integrate or implement a financial empowerment approach, looking at what's right for your organization. That's actually something that all the participants in this LCG utilize, and we'll be happy to share that with folks who are interested. But utilizing the information and the worksheets created through that toolkit, CAP OC started off by developing a set of financial needs assessment tools that they were going to use with current recipients of their financial capability services outside of that Healthy Families and Marriages grant that they got. And responses to these surveys then informed the types of services and education that they thought would be most impactful across all of their service offerings. So they continue to utilize that, and they also worked closely with Prosperity Now to get some customized TA to really help them think more about how to integrate financial empowerment work based on what they were already doing into that Healthy Families and Marriages grant that they were working on. And some of the barriers that they were encountered were, of course, client retention and engagement. That's always a challenge in this type of work. Also staff time and lines of communication, which is also ties to the next barrier that they encountered, which is various levels of understanding across their project staff. So as you remember, they're a fairly large organization, so working with their different staff, there was actually different levels of understanding of financial capability products and services across their staff. So that made it somewhat challenging to make sure that they were all on the same page in some regards of what they were sharing with their clients, how they were thinking about implementing this work, and that manifested itself in a couple of different ways for them. But despite those challenges, they have some pretty impressive outcomes so far. Again, they have created that whole toolkit of financial needs assessment tools that they're using across all of their service offerings. They've received some better insight on integration of financial empowerment services, again, across all of their offerings, and they were actually invited to attend a financial empowerment retreat hosted by Prosperity Now. As a result of their participation in this cohort, they were able to kind of connect offline with Prosperity Now, and they were invited to participate in this, I think it was like a 2 or 3 day summit where them and a few other organizations from their region were able to receive some more PA on financial empowerment and some different tools and new research that came out. So that was a very exciting opportunity for them. And you can see here, it's a little small, but here is a recap of that timeline of the different major events that they walked through, most of which we have already touched on. But really it was entering into that cohort, which led to the development of those financial needs assessment tools. Then they were invited to participate in that retreat, and that kind of went from there through the end of their cohort, and they are continuing to look for more ways to better integrate their financial empowerment offerings across their organization. So I know we talked a lot, but to kind of summarize the keys to success from the different agency case studies that we've looked at together, it all goes back to what I said in the beginning. And that is that financial empowerment is, again, it's about looking at what your clients have stated as their needs and offering them financial empowerment services that are right for them. So really meeting them where they are, really kind of leveling the playing field, so to speak, and making it a conversational offering that you provide to your clients. We all are touched by financial capability. This is something that revolves in all of our lives, and it's of critical importance for us to be knowledgeable in so we can make the decisions that are right for us. And that's what financial empowerment is really all about. And again, to reiterate, we're kind of showcasing the different steps that our agencies, not just the 3 case studies, but the other 12 organizations that participated in this cohort, kind of, if you look at their timeline, their major keys to success follow what we talked about earlier, starting with the building of peer-to-peer relationships and also working with their subject matter experts that help them to develop strategic detailed plans about what they wanted to accomplish in their time together. That also helped to inform their research, and then that led in many ways for them to improve financial capability strategies. So that kind of concludes our review of the case study. That was just a snippet of what was done, but if you are interested in reading the toolkit for yourself, you can click here and download it. It's actually available on the LCRC blog, and once you finish today's webinar, it's going to take you right to the event, so don't close the window. After we end the event, it'll take you right to it, but it'll be available there. We'll also post it on the partnerships website, and we'll make it easy to find. But we very much encourage you to download the case study. And this is the 4th, 5th installment, Liza, I'm not sure. We've done a lot in the anti-poverty practice series, and that's because we've done a lot in the learning community across our various groups. So in addition to the publication that was released today, we very much encourage you to go and check out some of the other publications in this series. One that I will particularly call out is our Ready, Set, Go publication, which is actually geared towards state associations, state CSVG offices. If you're interested in learning about how to host a learning community on the state or regional level, you can check that out. We provide you with templates from all of the tools that we created, all of our kind of, you can learn from our mistakes, so to speak, and you can continue to do this work and replicate it on the state and regional level. So go check them out. They're available on the partnerships website under the Toolkit and Publication Library. And you can also find them on the LCRC blog under the Resources tab. But if you're interested in learning more about the different offerings across the learning community and you want to get some live updates, we encourage you to subscribe on the blog. You can do that by going to the homepage. If you look on the right-hand side of your screen, there's a menu toolbar where you can actually enter in your email address and subscribe to receive live updates on the blog. And of course, all of our information is kind of warehoused on the CSVG TPA Resource Center. This is kind of the big granddaddy of where all of our training and technical assistance resources live. So if you need something, there's probably a good chance that you can find it there. So I would suggest that you go check it out. That is available at csvgtpa.org. And quickly, we want to talk about a couple of upcoming events before we pause for questions. I think we have a couple in the chat, but I want to tell you about some upcoming events that we're very excited about as a part of the Learning Communities Resource Center. This week on Wednesday, we are excited to have Prosperity Now join us once again to highlight one of their recent reports, which talks about the racial wealth gap, and it's titled The Road to Zero Wealth: How the Racial Wealth Divide is Hollowing Out America's Middle Class. That's going to be taking place, like I said, Wednesday, December 6th at 2 o'clock. We highly encourage you to register for that event. Finally, the learning community is going to be encouraging you all to enroll in our new cohort. We're very excited to announce this, and we want you all to join us on Thursday, this Thursday, December 7th at 2 p.m. for our Learning Community Kickoff webinar. This is where we will answer any and all questions about what is the learning community, what are the benefits of membership, why it's a good thing for you and your organization to take part of. We very much encourage you all to participate. Hopefully, since you joined us today, you're interested in what it looks like when you participate in the learning community, what kind of success stories that we have to share out with you all. So if you haven't already, please register for that event. We'll love to see you there. I'll be there. Liza will be there too, so if you want to hear more from us, we'll see you there on the 7th. So make sure you register for that webinar. Also, on December 13th, we're going to be having the Whole Family Approaches information session. The partnership is once again excited to announce that we are the recipients of a 2-generation grant made possible through the Annie E. Casey Foundation, and we are preparing to launch our new Community Action Economic Mobility Initiative. So again, if this is something that you're interested in taking part of, we're going to be having a learning community group, we're going to be having some communities of practice, and even an in-person institute for agencies that are accepted to participate in that effort. We very much encourage you to join us on the 13th. Check it out, learn more, and hopefully we'll have some new registrants. And we are excited to continue to promote our family-centered coaching resource, which is developed by the W.K. Kellogg Foundation. We're going to be having a corresponding webinar on that on the 14th because we don't already have enough going on. But we want to keep providing you all with these great resources. So that's going to be on December 14th at 2 p.m. And you can learn more about this new resource and the other offerings that we have in this topic area. So very exciting. And of course, we want to thank our subject matter expert in this work. As I mentioned a couple of times, we work very closely with Prosperity Now in the development and continuation of this learning community group. And we worked extensively with one person in particular, Ariel Bergman. She was the subject matter expert for each of the 13 agencies that participated in this work. So we want to give her a special shout out. Thank you, Ariel, for all of your work. And I want to give a shout out to the rest of the LCRC team. So of course, you see myself, but we have Tiffany Marley, who's the project director, Jarl Crocker, who is the director of training and technical assistance, Courtney Kohler, who is our senior associate for Team TA, Liza Porras, who is our program associate for Team TA, and we have Charity Frankowski, who is our AmeriCorps Vista lead volunteer on our Rural Impact Project. And here is where you can contact each and every one of us. Please feel free to reach out to any of us with your questions, comments, or concerns, and we'll do our best to get you pointed in the right direction. So that concludes our content for today's webinar, but I want to pause for any additional questions. Please feel free to send them in through the chat or the Q&A. We'll take a minute to pause and answer those. We got one question about Prosperity Now. Hopefully I answered it for you, but I'll talk a little bit more. But Prosperity Now is a research and policy think tank that is focused on financial capability and financial empowerment. They develop numerous toolkits. They also provide customized training and technical assistance through various grants that they work on. for organizations that are interested in participating and learning more about financial capability. They're doing some really great work, and we're very excited to be partnering with them. You can find more at their website, which is, I believe it's just prosperitynow.com. And we also provided you with the contact information, in particular with our subject matter expert for that group, Ariel Sankar-Bergman. She works primarily in their financial capability program, so she would be happy to connect you or answer any questions that you might have. Any other questions? We have a few more minutes. Oh, and it's prosperitynow.org, sorry, not .com. Any other questions? We have a couple of minutes. If not, excuse me, here's all of our contact information. If something comes up as soon as I close the webinar, I know that always happens to me, you can shoot me an email and I'd be happy to get you connected. But with that, that's actually going to conclude today's webinar presentation. Thank you all so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.